until, well, the end of August. So we've got a while to work our way through. And today we go to one of our favorite stories. It's about Noah, the flood. So we go to Genesis 7. We're going to learn about Noah today. The Lord said to Noah, "Go into the ark with your whole household, because among this generation I've seen that you are a moral man. From every clean animal take 7 pairs, a male and his mate. And from every unclean animal take 1 pair, a male and his mate. And from the birds in the sky as well, take 7 pairs, male and female, so that their offspring will survive throughout the earth. In 7 days from now I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. I will wipe off from this fertile land every living thing that I have made." Noah did everything the Lord commanded him. That is our reading of the scripture today. It's a story that we know oh so well about Noah and the flood. And if we think about it, when we talk about our lives sometimes can be a flood. If you read the call to worship carefully today, you would have noticed that there's a theme here about a flood in our lives. So the question is have you ever had a really bad week? The kind of week that you just think each day, hey, it's going to get a little bit better. And it doesn't. It gets a little bit worse. We've all had that kind of week, where on Thursday morning, and especially on Friday, it's like, nope, not today. You wake up, you're like, oh, I want to hit that snooze button. I'm not getting out of bed today because I've had enough. You had a week like that? Sure. All of us had a week like that, especially for those who teach. You just had exams and all that good stuff. But about that 3rd or 4th exam that you've had to proctor, administrate, or give, or something that you've been involved with, nope. Can I call in sick today? Nope, can't do that. You got to get out of bed, don't you? You know, I had a week like this several years ago. I was teaching and coaching, and it was the last week in April, or the first week in May, right about that time of year. You know, it's gorgeous outside, and you just want to be outside as much as possible. And you're getting to that time of year where you're prepping for tests and all this stuff. You're finishing up curriculum. And so it's a stressful week. My classes aren't behaving. I've had to come in and lay thunder and lightning more than once because they're high school kids. They're ready to be outside. And then to make matters worse, I'm coaching tennis and we have our conference tournament. So I'm going to be out all day on Thursday. I got to find a substitute teacher. I got to get all the paperwork ready. Teachers, you know what a miserable, miserable thing that is. I might as well just go in. Well, on Thursday, it's conference tournament. We're out in Greenville. The kids are playing tennis. They're actually playing good. I'm so happy. I'm like, see, this is why I get out of bed this morning. This is the day. This is beautiful. We're getting ready. I've got one guy that's going to go out and he's going to dominate the competition. He's doing well. He's playing good tennis. And then I get a phone call. You ever notice how when things start to finally turn the way you want them to go, here comes a phone call just to kind of knock you back down? That phone call reverses back to that week where you're just miserable and things just keep building and building and building and you don't want to get out of bed. Well, as soon as I got that phone call, I just wish that bed was there that day. I don't care if it was on the tennis court or not. I'd have crawled right in it. I got a telephone call for the parent of one of my players. She says, "Andrew, I want you to know something's going on in your classroom." And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What have they done now? Because that was a very challenging year with many of God's special, special creatures. So I say to Donna, Donna, what's going on? She said, they've got every administrator, every principal in your classroom right now. And they've got the resource officer. And the sheriff's deputy. Because we had both. I'm like, I don't even want that. I don't even want to know. So she said, I'm going to go and find out more information and tell you. I'll call you back and let you know. I said, well, your son son's doing great out here playing tennis. Trying to build some positive out of something. Please. About an hour and a half later, she calls again. I'm like, oh no, I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it. She said, you're never going to believe it. There was a fire in your room. Say what? A fire in your room. We're finishing up for the day, so then I have to go back by the school and I have to figure out what in the world is going on. So I walk in my classroom, and there is literally, you can see where a desk is singed. They set fire to a desk in my classroom. Here's what happened. One of the kids brought a firecracker. The other one brought a lighter. But neither one of them could figure out how to light it, so it took a third kid to light it and to help them to set my classroom on fire. And to have this firecracker just burning in on the table. Friday morning, I wake up. I said, no, Lord, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. I can't go to work today. They have set a fire in my classroom. That's something that, it just doesn't happen. I can't go in and face this. I'm done. I have had too much going on this week. I can't face it. But what do? I take myself into the classroom that morning. I turn off all the lights. I get it as dark as possible so that when they come in, oh, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. So the class change happens. The kids come in, and it's dark. And they're like, what in the world's going on? Uh-oh, uh-oh. I slammed the door. I rattled it. I slammed it so hard, I hoped I broke it. I didn't. And I just went in and ran it for 5 to 10 minutes. Because here's the worst part. The kids had done it, and nobody would tell who had brought the firecracker, who brought the lighter, and who set it on fire. I'm like, why can't you tell somebody? Well, we don't do that. Well, we don't set people's classrooms on fire either. I'll never live this down. I'm going to have to leave this school because everybody's going to remember him as the teacher whose kids set his classroom on fire. I still, to this day, it still doesn't sit well with me. I had it for that week. I had it for that year. I was done. My world was in a flood, and I was drowning in it. A sea of own personal just sorrow and pity for myself because things weren't going the way I wanted to. I thought about that this week. This week's been tough. Really carrying it in until Friday of the previous week. It's been tough, especially for Orlando community. If we think about it, how much can a person take when things just keep building and building and building and building? You have that young singer shot in the Orlando community. Then you have just this terrible atrocity last Sunday morning. While we're here together, details are just starting to sporadically come out. And then we find out that all of these people have been murdered in Orlando. And then if that wasn't enough to just cap things off, we have that alligator story on a 2-year-old. I got a 2-year-old. That hit hard. How many times in life does our world build up and become just a flood? How many times in our lives do we look out and we just say, this world is terrible, it stinks, I'm done. There's nothing else I can do. I'm going to crawl back in bed, I'm going to roll over, I'm going to hit the snooze, and I'm not getting out of bed today because I've had enough. The world is terrible. So what can we do? If we go into the story of Noah, we're told that the world was indeed terrible. So what is God to do? In Genesis 6, we learn that the world is such a terrible place that God is going to purge it, clean it with this flood. There's some questions that should arise here as we kind of go through the story of Noah. How bad was it? I really want to know, how bad was it back then for this flood to need to occur? What that you needed this flood. Because, when I hear this story of all these people killed in Orlando, I'm thinking, boy, you better go on and get your life preservers, because here it comes again. How bad was it? We don't know. But we're told that Noah, can you imagine what Noah went through? The stress. We hear in the scripture that I read today, he's a moral man. So God chooses Noah. Imagine his stress. Building this ark, knowing what's going to happen here, of what's going to befall the earth, gathering up these animals. It's a difficult setting. What is Noah going to do? He's going to be faithful. He's going to listen to what God has commanded him to do. He's going to build an ark to save himself, his family, and these animals as these waters of purification come and lay waste. And it's really funny because if you look just the past few weeks, we talked about the creation story. Now we're talking about recreation. Because of what has happened. Humans have taken things and just made a mess. And so God comes in and purifies and cleanses. It makes for a lot of questions. I don't know about you, and I'm sorry, I just have to share this. I always have a question when I think about the 40 days and 40 nights. I want to know who cleaned up after the animals. Who cleaned up after the animals? Was it Noah? No, it couldn't have been Noah. Noah would have sent one of the kids to do it. Isn't that right? He would have sent one of the kids to do it. Clean up after all those animals. For 40 days and for 40 nights. The question that always is on our minds too is, where was the flood? How big was it? We talk about this when we talk about the historical accuracy. One of the things that's very interesting is that if we look in ancient cultures, most ancient cultures talk about the flood. We can see it in the Epic of Gilgamesh in Sumerian culture. We can see it in Egyptian culture. There is story. We always have this story out of these cultures of this great flood. And what does it mean? We've even seen the stories break, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, of finding an ark in the Himalayas. So we have all these questions. And I think one of the most pressing is, what did it accomplish? The world was purified, recreated. And what about that? The world was terrible, we're told in Genesis 6. What can God do? God purifies, washes it away. So today, the world is terrible. It's a terrible place. The question is not, what will God do? But the question is, what will we do? You see, if we are truly instruments of God, what will we do? And that's a pressing question. I think one of the most important things for us to look at is that when things build up on us and we feel like this world we just cannot deal because it's just rooted in evil and all of this terrible, just the way people treat each other, it's just horrible. What can we do? What can we do? We can walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. We can take 1 second to imagine what it was like to live like someone else. To live like someone who lost a family member at the Pulse nightclub. To live like someone who was in the Pulse nightclub. To face the terror when the shooter walks in. To live the life of the shooter. Oh, we don't want to go there, do we? You know, everybody since Sunday has been looking for someone to blame. You remember we talked about last Sunday, the blame game, and it's on big time. I've gotten to where CNN and all the major news, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. I'm forced to read it. It's like when you go by at the grocery store and you see those little tabloid magazines, you're like, I don't want to look at it, but yet you do anyway. And you check those headlines and you hear about that celebrity who's gotten really, really fat and really, really skinny and what she had done, what he had done, all that stuff. You can't help yourself but look. So I can't help myself but look on the major news articles. Who are they going to blame today? What if we walked a mile in somebody else's shoes? problem where we don't value human decency and human life. We don't have compassion in our hearts for other humans. We try to dehumanize someone else by saying, oh, they're different from us. That's why certain news stories connect harder than others. I have a friend who's gay and Latino. The Pulse nightclub hit him hard. When that 2-year-old is carried away by an alligator, that hit me hard. But you know what? All of us should be hit hard by these news stories. All of us should hurt for one another. Because that's human decency. We shouldn't care that somebody is different than how we are. But yet we're going to blame them anyway. We're going to figure out a way. The latest thing is we're going to blame anybody who's Muslim. There's even a pastor up in Dallastown, Pennsylvania, who said something about Happy Ramadan to a group of Muslims. And now it's all over the news because a local politician got a hold of it and just ripped him a new one. Oh, you can't say anything about Islam. You can't say anything affirming or denying. I'm here to tell you that this Islamophobia, this fear of Islam, is not healthy. It's not good. When can we look at somebody else and value them for being a person, not knowing anything about their religion, their sexuality, knowing anything about them? You know, a lot of times I think it'd be better if we couldn't see one another. Then we couldn't tell someone's race, ethnicity, and we wouldn't care. But yet, it's radical Islam's fault. So it's all of Islam's fault. Well, I got news for you. If it's radical Islam's fault, and it's Islam's fault, then when Westboro Baptist Church, the folks who go out and picket, when a soldier passes away, they go out and picket. Well, that means that defines Christianity just as radical Islam defines the Islamic religion. Go look up Westboro Baptist Church. Don't do it with your kids around. Don't do it. That's a Christian organization. Does that define us? That's the problem. What are we to do? What are we to do? You see, God does not tolerate the sinfulness of society. We've learned that. We've seen the flood, and it should tell us that we've got to do something about the way we treat each other as humans. Human decency thrown out the window. We've got to take action. We've got to physically do something. We've got to look out to people and say, I value you and I appreciate you because you are a fellow human being and you are the one for whom Christ died for. People forget that, especially in a Christian church. And I'm not talking about disciples of Christ, I'm talking about Christianity as a whole. Forget that we believe that Christ died for everybody. But yet, the other, the person who's different from us, we don't care. My world is a flood. Our world is a flood. And if we don't do something about it, if we don't take a stand, if we don't start moving and making a difference in our community and in our world, telling everyone that God is good and tomorrow is a brand new day and there is hope and there is optimism, then the floodwaters will get us. It's time to act. Amen? We can pray for them. Amazing God, we lament a world that we think sometimes is beyond saving. And yet, when we read this Bible, we are told over and over again that it is a world that was worth the death of Jesus Christ. It's a world that has value It's a place that should be hopeful and optimistic. And we have got to be better stewards of that message. We have got to make a difference in this world, one step at a time. One step at a time. One person that we interact with each day. That we can just brighten their day. Tell them the good news that Jesus Christ is and forever will be our Savior. We've got to treat humans with decency and respect. Allow us to always be good stewards of that message. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen.